I'm kind of curious on some of your perceptions on that you have of the show itself and topics that you want to cover.
Okay. Okay. I'm ready for it.
Okay, all right. Well, see, I
Ready.
know you sent me on the registration form. You were talking about. I want to jump right into generational curses. Do you believe that generational curses is something that's very real?
I personally don't believe that they are real.
Okay, that.
So simply because of the environment that people are, I don't want to say bred in, but in a typical household, I'll use diabetes for example. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people think that that's a generational curse, because my great grandma had it, my grandma had it, my mama had it, and now I had it. So
Right.
that's not necessarily the case. So the only thing that transfers from the great grandma down to me are cooking habits. So
Hmm.
if my if my great great grandma used excess amount of salt when cooking food, and then she taught my grandma taught my mom how to do it, and now my mom taught me. That's that's just not that's not a curse to me. That's just cooking with the wrong ingredients and
Okay.
not being cognizant of what you're actually using.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you make the recipes, and that's nobody's fault, because during those times you really didn't really know. We cooked to taste anyway, not really by measurement. So that's a whole nother thing within itself,
Uh-huh.
with the reasoning why diabetes is so rampant in the African American community.
Right, right. So that's an interesting spin on that, and I can appreciate that because yes, diabetes can potentially, in some chances, some things are out of people's control. Some people do become
Mhm.
diabetic without their control, but
Mhm.
potentially it can be done from just bad cooking habits or just bad teaching habits that were passed down.
Mhm.
Like you said, grandma taught mom, mom taught you, and you're doing the same thing. It's just if you can change up the game itself or change the way the style of you cook or the foods that you eat or the spices or anything like that, that could potentially change.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What do you think? At least for generational curses, when people say that they've been poor their whole life, and their parents were poor, and their grandparents were poor, and their grandparents' parents were also poor. Do you think that's a generational curse?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I'm gonna say no,
Okay,
uh, because the lack of money is not a problem; it's a symptom.
I
So,
agree with that. Please explain.
so if you figure out the symptom, work hard is like the standard, or the secret recipe to being poor, meaning going to a 9 to 5. Poor people trade time for dollars, and
Hmm.
rich people trade money to make money.
Hmm.
So if we're not taught how to invest, to know the difference between liabilities and assets, stocks and other stuff like that, we really that's I don't think that's a generational curse.
Okay, all right. I know, like you were saying, rich people they trade their they don't like to waste their time. The most valuable commodity we have is our time. I mean,
Yes, sir.
once it's gone, it's gone. And if you learn how to leverage money, if you learn, yeah, generational curses, or what's perceived as a generational curse, at least with money, I believe is potentially the lack of education as well. I know
I
in
agree.
traditional schools we're not taught about finances and savings and checking savings accounts and all those things. If you learn something about that, you can potentially change your life, which does change the life of your kids and family friends that are in your immediate circle. I do believe. I don't believe, like you were saying, that it's an actual generational curse because I think a curse would be something that's out of our control.
I agree. Now, I agree with that.
I
I agree
think
with that.
something that we can change with more education or awareness that can be
Mhm.
changed. I know you were talking again diabetes and finances. What else do you think might be a generational curse that we like to stereotype?
Alcoholism also falls in that category. Drug
Okay.
abuse. So if I grew up watching my uncles, drink,
Hmm.
playing spades or dominoes or Texas Hold'em or whatever it was, and I was stuck in that environment, and that's all I knew. Subconsciously, I would develop that. Now,
Uh-huh.
granted, it is some people that can like stern away from it,
Hmm.
but the just the concept of being in that environment, a lot of people don't give the environment credit as far as molding and how detrimental it could be if you don't observe surroundings.
I agree. I think that play devil's advocate with both of that. I think there was a story I read. I forget which book, so don't quote me on this one. And I'll just blame it on Shayla, not me. But but I think there were two twins, two sons that grew up in the same household as a father. The father was an alcoholic. The oldest son of the twins grew up to be an alcoholic as well. They were like, "How did you grow up to be an alcoholic?" And the son said, "I watched my father." The youngest son grew up not to touch alcohol at all. It disdained it and didn't want to be around it at all. They asked the son the same question: "How'd you turn out to not be an alcoholic and not drink alcohol?" He said, "Same answer. I watched my father." Both of them came up in the same environment, same situation. Their mindsets were different, and one went right and one went left.
Mhm. I so I agree with that. So a lot of people, I know a few people that's actually like that uh,
Mm-hmm.
because they watch their parents do it, and then they
Mm-hmm.
develop cirrhosis.
Yeah, yeah.
So in order for my, in order for my health to be good, I don't want to do the same thing that my dad did or my mom did. But some people could see that uh, as well. I'm gonna do that because that's mom and daddy.
Right.
They the original teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Up until you go to school. So you learn all your good and bad habits from your parents.